The game is basically a top-down strategy game, a turn-based, tile-based on a tile map, where we want the player to feel like they are in charge of this army which has to defend Britain from an invading force of Viking. The point is, the things that differs our games from other games is that we have implemented this prisoner's dilemma as the central mechanic of the game. You often encounter prisoner dilemma situation in other games, but in our games it is the central mechanic of it, and the only way to win the game is by employing the tit-for-tat strategy.
Two set of textures, one with ambient occlusion shadows, so soft shadows between bodies and within bodies. So that way, when you actually enable ambient occlusion, you get texture-based ambient occlusion. Whereas if you disable it, you have plain diffuse colors and only texture information, so there are no shadows at all. And this is done because we want a clear separation between texture-based ambient occlusion and the usually used screen space ambient occlusion. Well, we concentrated on doing a technique that's not seen that much before, where we work with texture atlases, so texture that contains sections, as you could say, but they are textures only containing ambient occlusion shadows. So these sections in the texture atlas, they are synced with the keyframe of the animation, for example, of a Viking warrior as he swings his axe. That way you get much more control over your shadows, and yeah, you can customize it and scale it as you want, where screen space ambient occlusion is much more fixed, and you cannot always get the look that you want for all objects because it's so uniform.
The setting of the game is this. The year is 865 and a great Viking army has just landed on the eastern shores of England. And, well, historically, the Vikings have been raiding the shores and islands of England during the past 70 years or so. But this was the first time that an army had landed that was actually meant for conquest. Within a few years, the army conquered large parts of England and established what became known as Danelaw, which more or less means the area where the law of the Danes is valid. And in this area, Vikings were settled as farmers and craftsmen. And in the following period, Danelaw would prosper. They did well, leading to other Vikings to make raids on the shores of Danelaw. And as time went by, Danelaw came more and more under the rule of the English.
That many graphical options, but those that are there are quite essential for what we have worked with in relation to computer graphics. Essentially, you only got two options. If you want to have screen space ambient occlusion enabled, or if you want to have texture-based dynamic ambient occlusion. And we actually incorporated it in that way that if you enable screen space ambient occlusion and you have a computer that does not fit the requirement for this setting, you will get a warning.
In Viking Invasion, we have the two sides, the British who resides in Britain and the Viking invaders. In the start of the game, the British are in control of all of Britain except for two tiles where the Viking invaders are. You can control the front line between the two sides, where you, for each of your units you can say either trade or attack the Viking next to it, or you can run away. If you trade and the Viking responds with an attack, that corresponds to cooperation and defection, where you cooperate and the Viking defect. If you both trade, then you both cooperate and gain the most, and if you attack and he attack, then you both defect. Of course, you can also gain by attacking when the Vikings are trading. That would mean that you are defecting and the Vikings are cooperating, but this will be a bad strategy, because then the Vikings will get angry at you and you will have a harder time defeating them.